Sunny Hostin goes on The View and decides now would be a great time to dump all over the so-called uneducated.
What we did not have is white women who voted about 52%, right, for Donald Trump. Uneducated white women, is my understanding. You have Latino men, actually, voting more for him. And you have, and black men was not the story. We're not the story here because they voted almost 80% for the vice president.
Chaos erupted once again on The View. But this time, the backlash wasn't just from critics. It came from their own audience. So, what set Whoopi, Sunny, and the rest of the panel off this time?
I think that what people fail to realize, many people, is how interconnected our economies are. You know, they're like, America first, America first. Let's make everything here. Let's do everything here. Let's be very insulated. And that sounds good, it sounds patriotic, but we are geopolitically connected to the rest of the world. We don't want to be isolated from everyone else.
I've traveled all over the world as part of U.S. delegations in diplomacy in my previous capacity. And what makes America the most powerful nation on earth is that we have friends and allies. And it's because we engage in international trade, we don't bully our friends, we show up and give international aid. And if we stop doing that, which is what I feel like Trump is leaning into, I'm not saying that that's fully what he's doing yet, we're ceding our role of global superpower to China because they will step in, they will show up, and they will be friends to the people that we're giving not a nice signal to in Canada and elsewhere.
That Wall Street...
Donald Trump's latest tariff proposal. Whether you love him or hate him, Trump has a knack for shaking things up. And his trade policy announcement had the co-hosts in full panic mode. They unleashed a flurry of arguments, calling it reckless, destructive, and a disaster for the country. But then, things took an unexpected turn. In the middle of tearing into Trump's policies,
the president will be implementing tomorrow a 25% tariffs on Mexico, 25% tariffs on Canada, and a 10% tariff on China for the illegal fentanyl that they have sourced and allowed to distribute into our country, which has killed tens of millions of Americans. These are promises made and promises kept.
You have a coffee store, and you're going to sell a cup of coffee, and your coffee is $5. We know how expensive coffee is, right?
Yeah.
You sell coffee for $5. Now the coffee beans coming in from Mexico are now $5 more. You think if I own that shop, I'm going to eat that $5? No. Your cup of coffee just costs $10. Well, and that's the deal.
Sunny Hostin accidentally veered into dangerous territory, making a surprising case for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. instead. The audience reaction? Let's just say it wasn't exactly supportive. Groans, murmurs, and even a few boos filled the air as the hosts scrambled to recover. It seems The View may have miscalculated their audience this time. Ana Navarro never misses a chance to turn a policy debate into a personal crisis. And her latest take on The View was no exception.
You can talk about making American and building American, but that also requires that we make big changes as to how we do things.
Maybe R.F. Kennedy Jr.
During a discussion about Trump's proposed tariffs on Mexico, she skipped past economic analysis and went straight to what really mattered. To her, at least, the price of tequila. She argued that tariffs could make her margaritas more expensive, and somehow linked that to an attack on Mexican culture. But let's take a step back. Shouldn't the real conversation be about how these tariffs impact industries, workers, and trade relations? Instead, Ana framed it as a personal tragedy for her cocktail budget. If her concern is truly the well-being of Mexican workers, wouldn't she support policies that promote fair wages and better conditions? But no. The crisis at hand, according to her, is a pricier night out. And just when you thought the debate had reached peak absurdity, Sunny decided to take it even further. Stay tuned. If there's one thing Sunny Hostin loves to do on The View, it's flex her credentials. Lawyer, journalist, intellectual. She'll remind you of it all. But sometimes credentials don't guarantee accuracy. During a discussion on Trump's proposed tariffs, Sunny took the opportunity to deliver a long, winding explanation of how tariffs work. But then she threw out a baffling example. She claimed that a 25% tariff on imported goods would make a $5 cup of coffee cost $10. Yes, a 25% tax somehow meant prices would double. Basic math says otherwise. A 25% tariff would increase $5 to $6.25, not $10. So where did that extra $3.75 come from? Is there an inflation crisis that only exists in Sunny's world? Even the audience seemed to sense something was off. The other hosts nodded politely, but you could see the gears turning in their heads. That's not how percentages work. But the real shocker came next. In an effort to criticize Trump, Sunny pivoted to America's flawed food industry, how corporate greed and weak regulations were hurting public health. But then she slipped up. She casually mentioned that maybe Robert F. Kennedy Jr. had a point about fixing the system. And just like that, the mood shifted. For once, The View's loyal audience, always ready to cheer an anti-Trump take, was silent. A few gasps, maybe even some boos. Sunny realized in real time she had just accidentally endorsed the wrong outsider. It was like a system failure in The View's studio. The audience, typically quick to cheer anything said at the table, suddenly didn't know what to do. Had Sunny just accidentally admitted RFK Jr. had a point? You could see the moment of realization hit her. Her expression shifted from confidence to sheer panic, like she had just violated some daytime TV doctrine. And that's when Whoopi Goldberg jumped in for damage control. If you've watched The View long enough, you know Whoopi has a habit of stepping in with what she believes are profound insights. The problem? They rarely make sense. This time, she took the conversation in a completely unexpected direction. America, she declared, is the real problem in global trade. She argued that when the US demands fair trade, it's actually bullying other nations. That we always take more than we give, and when we try to negotiate better deals, we're just proving our selfishness. But Whoopi wasn't the only one trying to clean up Sunny's blunder. Enter Alyssa Farah Griffin, The View's resident conservative. Now, Alyssa might technically be the right-leaning panelist, but let's be honest, her brand of conservatism is more corporate PR than policy-driven debate. Rather than questioning Whoopi's argument, she took a different route. She warned that if America renegotiates bad trade deals, China will take over the world economy. Fixing terrible trade deals is somehow a sign of weakness, but letting foreign countries walk all over us makes us strong? Can someone explain that logic? Now, let's take a moment to break this down. Because what happened on The View wasn't just another awkward daytime TV moment. It was a major slip-up that revealed something bigger. These hosts claim they stand for the people. They talk a big game about fighting for workers, calling out corporate corruption, and standing up for struggling families. But the second someone brings up a real issue with an actual solution, they freak out because it's coming from someone they don't like. Take Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He raises real concerns, like how the food we eat is filled with chemicals that are banned in other countries, or how lobbyists control every major policy decision, from healthcare to trade. You'd think The View's hosts, who say they're all about justice and fairness, would at least be open to that discussion. But nope. The second Sunny even hinted at agreeing with RFK Jr., the entire show went off the rails. This wasn't a real debate. It was about enforcing a narrative. But for once, the audience didn't buy it. Usually they clap when the sign tells them to. Someone takes a swipe at Trump and they erupt with applause. But this time, they hesitated, and then they booed. That's a huge shift. Even The View's audience, the most predictable, media-trained crowd out there, couldn't hide their reaction. Sunny let the truth slip. And the moment it happened, damage control kicked in. Whoopi scrambled to redirect the conversation. Alyssa jumped in with the usual globalist script, but the damage was done. This segment was supposed to be another easy anti-Trump rant. Instead, they completely exposed themselves. But what do you guys think? Is The View finally losing its audience? Are more people seeing through the act? Drop your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to follow for more updates.